Hey Sopranos fans, welcome to another episode here on Sopranos Street, and we are here today to evaluate Mr. Furio
You gotta be on your act.
Giunta. That's the best nickname I can come up with, maybe Mr. Williams, since that's how Tony introduced him, but like Big Pussy said, if ever there was someone who needed a nickname, it's Furio, so I'll let you have at it down in the comment sections as to what you think the best one would be. Furio is interesting to evaluate, not only because he's the only somewhat main character that was not from the US, so he provided a great contrast to the Jersey guys, but also because he's the only mob guy besides Tony that Carmela likes romantically. It's in his relationship with Carmela that the audience sees the supposed differences between him and Tony, but if you look more closely, that may not be the case, as Carmela's relationship with Furio parallels the audience's to some degree. So, when evaluating Furio, we have several areas to address. What Tony saw in Furio, how Furio lived up to the expectations of being a fearsome, sometimes perfect enforcer, as well as the Carmela situation, and along the way, address a couple of the questions surrounding his character, such as if Tony would have been able to get to him in Italy, and the fan theory that Furio came back and killed Tony to end the series. We are first introduced to Furio during Tony's trip to Italy, and during his pivotal scene, Tony notices a few things. A level of dedication, as he knows his guys would not do the same, as well as a level of professionalism, which was only enhanced by the contrastingly unprofessional behavior of Paulie and Chris during the trip. And also his potential to be a fearsome enforcer. So, Tony negotiates Furio's moving to the US with the idea that Furio would be a fearsome enforcer and would have no loyalties to anyone here but himself. We'll get back to that second part later. Furio quickly begins to prove Tony right when he is brought to a massage parlor that owed money. Despite Christopher's aggressive threatening of them with a paintbrush, they didn't pay. Furio decided to take a, let's say, more action-oriented approach. You gotta be on your knee. He further goes on to show that he's not only an effective collector, but also has the mindset of an earner when he goes to collect from Matthew Bevilacqua and Sean Gismonti, and ends up with an extra G note for himself.
Fuck, it's that fucking Zip Furio and somebody. The fuck? Let him in before he kicks the door down. Furio, right?
We are for the money.
Money.
The boss money.
10%, right? 7,500. It's all there.
Give me $1,000.
1,000 more?
Christopher said 10%.
$1,000.
Of course, that was just lifting some money off a couple of nobodies, but he demonstrates an interest in the workings of more complex schemes, such as the calling cards, showing him to be a bit more than just muscle for hire. In the case of Jean-Philippe, even though we really didn't see it, Furio would have been the perfect person to send. Artie couldn't collect because he was a wuss, and even the Jersey-wise guys would have had one big thing going against them. In Jean-Philippe's mind, as long as he could get out of that room, he can go back to France and be home free. Furio, on the other hand, can make it abundantly clear that he can't hide, even in Europe. Another important thing about Furio is that even when he's on the defensive, he keeps his composure, like when the card game gets robbed.
Shut the fuck up! Empty your pockets! All of you! Come on!
Very bad, boys. Very bad.
This is a low-level game, guys. The only thing you're gonna get around here is practice.
You heard what he said. Shut the fuck up!
Hey, take it easy, huh? Take it easy.
And he gets shot. Despite taking one almost in the groin, he handles it quite well and even brushes off Tony's jokes.
Thank God they didn't hit nothing important.
Oh, he's fucking the prick. Is it really a doctor?
Close. I'm a prick doctor. Get it?
While you're here, maybe give you a bulge. Doc, see if you can remove this lady's underwear.
It's important to note here that this may have proven to be a tremendous disappointment to Carmela, and you can't help but wonder what she would have thought.
I saw it. Looked like a button in a fur coat.
So what did Carmela see in Furio? Now, I'm not going to turn this into a video about Carm's taste in men, but personally I think it was the dancing. Tony's camel walk just wasn't doing it for Carm.
Tony, Jesus.
Where I live.
You smell like Lord Calvert. Tony.
We have a good time. We don't talk. We all get together and kind of whatever we do the camel walk.
Meanwhile, there was just something about Furio's dancing that mesmerized her.
It's all hips and nips.
Regardless of the reasons, Carmela likes Furio, and it's somewhat through her perspective that the audience sees the supposed differences between him and Tony, but how different are they really? Carmela sees Furio as a more family-oriented, salt-of-the-earth type of guy. He has a better relationship with his mother, as shown in his preparing of the house, and he talks of how he was never happier than when he was working in the dirt. But let's be fair here. No one had a good relationship with Livia, and Tony's done his fair share of working in the dirt, although he wasn't happy about it. But Carmela also feels an emotional connection with Furio that she doesn't with Tony, and Furio seems to feel the same way. Between the conversation with his uncle at his father's funeral and crying over pictures of Carm in the car, all signs point towards genuine feelings that manifest when Furio almost kills Tony and then heads back to Italy. But let's take a second and assume Furio is much more like Tony than it may seem. In addition to saying he didn't feel like he belonged in Italy anymore, he also said this in a conversation with Carm.
It was not so nice. I don't belong there no more. I feel strange to live here also. Maybe I should never have come to America.
Which shows him to be a man with an inner conflict as to who he is or where he belongs, similar to how we see Tony throughout the series, especially in his dreams and his sessions with Dr. Melfi. As we all know, Tony developed an intense attraction for Dr. Melfi, and setting aside the fact that she's a damn good-looking woman, she attributes it to this.
You're only feeling this way because we've made such progress.
What?
I've been a broad, generic, sympathetic woman to you because that's what this work calls for.
A broad, generic, sympathetic female character that a mob guy with an identity crisis finds himself intensely attracted to. Sound familiar? Furio's attraction to Carmela, whether he knew it or not, may have been similar to Tony's attraction to Melfi, and, just like with Tony, may have reached that high a level simply because he couldn't have her. We've seen Tony be equally infatuated with Gloria.
What are my chances of kidnapping you for the rest of the afternoon?
I'm closing on a car.
Come on. Let Hans and Franz do the paperwork. I'm going nuts thinking about you.
But it fizzled out quickly because he got her, and we never get the chance to see how Furia and Carmela would have worked out long-term had he gotten her. That brings us to the helicopter scene, which is where he would have had his chance to do so, and also where we circle back around to Furio not having any loyalties in the US other than Tony. The reality was, Furio had no loyalties to anyone in the US, including Tony. Furio was a professional mafioso from Italy whose loyalty was to the code, so it's easy to see how many fans view this as him almost acting impulsively, realizing he shouldn't kill a boss, and returning to Italy because he couldn't fulfill his duties. But again, let's look at him as if he were more like Tony. When Tony wanted one of his guy's women, Adriana, he discussed it with Dr. Melfi. After showing that he had seriously considered it, similar to how Furio did with Carmela,
She's drop-dead gorgeous. I mean, someone like her, I could do it right this time. I could start a whole new family.
he then gives his reasons for not going through with it.
It'd be a disaster of major proportions. Carmela, I'd get hosed financially. There'd be no reason with her after that. And my nephew, it would kill him. After years of grooming him to be my number two. That'd be very bad for the girl. She doesn't deserve that.
Notice how he went back and forth between the practical and the moral reasoning, but he started with the practical, getting hosed by Carmela. Even when he brings up moral reason, like hurting Chris, he immediately follows it up with a related practical reason, like wasting all that time grooming him as a number 2. Finally, he brings up aid and its impact on her, similar to how Carm's feelings would have ran a distant fourth in Furio's mind when deciding whether to kill Tony, behind his own personal wants, obligations, and concerns. Since Tony had never shown any opposition to hurting people in the past, it's safe to assume his real concerns were the practical ones, and I think it's also fair to say that both aspects of that statement can apply to Furio as well. Furio didn't kill Tony due to practical reasons, not because of some code, and in a lot of ways he proves to be a version of Tony cut short to both Carmela and the audience. We see enough of him to find him entertaining and possessing some positive qualities, but unlike Tony, he leaves before we get to see enough to know the ugly side and see through many of the charades. But what about after he went back to Italy? Tony told Carmela that he would be killed if certain people found him, but could Tony really pull that off? In a very general sense, yes. When you have money and know people who will do shady things for money, it's always a possibility, but realistically, no. Maybe back in the Lucky Luciano days when the bosses were all from Italy and still had lots of close family and friends there, but by the time the Sopranos came around, there really isn't that strong of a connection. As to the fan theory that Furio killed Tony at the end of the series, personally, I think we need to take more of a look at Mystery Junkie's theory that Noah walked into the diner and punched Tony's lights out at the end, cut to black, but I'll evaluate this one anyway. In keeping with the idea that Furio is a lot like Tony, I find it unlikely for practical reasons. He couldn't stay in the US after that, so he'd have to move Carm to Italy, which she probably wouldn't mind, except that it would take Meadow about half a second to put 2 and 2 together. Beyond that, the longer he was in Italy, the more likely he was to find someone new. Tony always did. Well, thanks for watching this episode here on Soprano Street. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you at the next score.